Johnson, Public Art Program Manager with the Department of Arts and History in the city of Boise. Thank you so much to our location hosts tonight, Glean Gallery and Fire Fusion Studio, for use of your beautiful space. Woo. We're excited to share in a vision for creating a space for creatives to learn and network, and that's what tonight is all about. It's my pleasure to introduce Hannah Williamson, Public Art Project Coordinator for the Department of Public Works, who will tell us a bit more about going public and our panel conversation tonight.
Thank you. As Stephanie said, my name is Hannah Williamson. I'm the Public Works Public Art Project Coordinator with the City of Boise. I liaise between the Departments of Art and History and the Public Works Department to create opportunities for our artists to highlight the city's natural resources, public infrastructure, and renewable energy initiatives. This partnership is an opportunity to call on artists to become impactful leaders in the city's climate action plan. And this event, as Stephanie had mentioned, is the second installment in our Going Public series, which is a professional development series, 4 parts, 2 sessions in the spring, 2 sessions in the fall, that each session is crafted to build on each other so that artists are learning how to, are being equipped to, or with tools and knowledge to emerge as stronger candidates for our future calls, especially within the public works. There's a ton of opportunities coming forward, and we want to equip our emerging and local artists as best we can. So the summary for the night is this conversation, I hope, strikes everyone here. It's a chance to glean wisdom from established artists that have worked within public art, and then to understand that there's many paths to pursuing public art, and there's no wrong way of pursuing it. As we move forward, we want to create a space for you to participate with question and answer. So at the end, you might have noticed on your seats that there are note cards and a pencil for you to write any questions that come up as the discussion continues, and we will notify you towards the end of the discussion when we are going to be collecting those note cards, and then Kirsten will be reading them out. So, without further ado, I get to pass the conversation on to our esteemed panel. And leading the conversation is Kirsten Furlong, Director of Blue Galleries, the lecturer in the Department of Art, Design, and Visual Studies at BSU, as well as featured artist in our public art collection. She brings a wealth of experience and insight into our discussion tonight, and I am excited to see where the conversation leads. So Kirsten, without further ado, if you want to introduce yourself and let all the artists introduce themselves.
Yeah. Thanks so much. So I just want to say, starting off, thank you so much to the Boise City Department of Arts and History. We have an amazing city department of art and history. Like, we're so lucky. I think it's not till I go to other cities that are about the size of Boise that I realize like how much is happening here and how high the quality is, and I'm just excited to continue to work with them on so many different fronts, and this is great. And I'm here with all these amazing artists, and we already had like kind of a preview conversation, which was really fantastic. And the thing that, you know, I left with after that pre-conversation was like, you can get to do public art coming from a lot of different perspectives. And that's really what we're gonna talk about a lot tonight. So since they already introduced me, I'm just gonna quickly say I'm Kirsten Furlong. I'm a visual artist. In addition to being a gallery director at Boise State and a lecturer where I teach a class where I actually work with artists who are finishing a BFA program, so emerging artists in our community. And my practice is really centered around environmental issues, and I work a lot with installation painting and drawing. And one of the things that I'm going to have each of the artists do when they introduce themselves in a second is talk about what their first public art project was and how they got there. So as an intro, I'm going to just talk about that really briefly. I've had the pleasure of working with the Boise City Department of Arts and History on many different occasions for different things. I don't know if chronologically this is actually the first, but I'm gonna put it that way for this particular question. About 11 years ago, does anybody remember the sesquicentennial of the city of Boise? And they had an amazing space downtown on Main Street, and they did programming in that space. And they invited artists to come into the space. And they invited me to do an environmentally themed mini artist in residence, where I was working in that space. So it was like it was a space about the size of the space that we're sitting in right now, and they were doing programming and exhibitions and having artists do projects in there. And I decided to focus my project on a poem I had recently read called Unchopping a Tree by the poet W.S. Merwin. It was written in 1970, and basically the writer, this is a prose poem, but the writer is kind of more known for poetry. But this writing, he gives instructions for how to put a tree back together that's been cut down, and in a very detailed way. And it's an extremely beautiful piece of writing. If you ever are looking for something to read, I would recommend it. Essentially, in giving all these instructions of how to put a tree back together, you realize that it's impossible, right? Like, because he's talking about like picking up spider webs and little, you know, pieces of sawdust that, in addition to like putting larger pieces together. And even if you tried and you did a really good job and put this tree back together, it wouldn't be what it started out as. And so the piece is really about like what you mess up in the natural environment, you will never get it back. And I thought, this is the city of trees. Like, this is a great metaphor for what's going on like in the city. And so I started making all these pieces. Also, thankfully, so I had some material to work with. The city arts department connected me with the forestry department, who provided me with all of the like limbs and trees and things that they were cutting down on the city trees and trimming. So I had all this material to work with. And one of the pieces that I made at the end of this short residency, they asked, like, could we install this piece? It was installed on the floor of the gallery. Could we install this piece at the Boise Watershed Environmental Education Center, which some of you have probably visited, as an temporary outdoor piece? And we actually ended up installing it there, and it was out there for about a year. So it was this great piece because it went from being a gallery piece to being this temporary outdoor piece. And then I actually took it back, and it's continued its life as a piece that's been shown in museums and galleries. So it was an amazing experience because it had all these different facets, and it had this interesting life to the piece. It wasn't just like, we're going to put this here and it will stay here forever and ever and ever. And I also felt like conceptually, like it was really tied to the goal of the environmental focus, the city itself, and the material itself was like part of the city, a living part of the city at one point. So that's my intro. And now I'm going to pass it this direction so each of the artists can introduce themselves and then answer the question, what was your first public art project and how did you get there?
All right. Well, thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Hannah, and thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, everyone that's here today. Means a lot. It's really cool being part of a community like this. And so my name is Gaytan. I've been doing art most of my life, as far as I can remember. I've been doing some sort of art, and I'm a graphic designer, I'm an illustrator, I'm a mural artist. I went to school here at Boise State, studied graphic design. You know, since then I've just always been part of the community by being involved in some sort of art related project, and it's been really nice to see the support that the city has for art and public art in general, and I'm really excited to be part of this panel. I currently serve as the arts commissioner for the city of Meridian. So in the last 3 years, I've been able to just learn so much about what goes on behind the scenes, and just, you know, the amount of just knowledge that I've been gaining through that position has really been helpful. And I'm hoping to share some of that here with you guys, and also share some of my experience with being an artist in the public realm. As far as like and I got a little cheat sheet because sometimes I go off topic, and I just want to make sure that I stay on topic. And
That's usually the best, when people go off topic.
Well, let's see. My first public art piece. Like I said, I've been doing art my whole life, but I think my first art project was a mural I did for my aunt's thrift store when I was 15. And so she gave me and my friends an opportunity to showcase our graffiti skills, because she didn't want us to be doing all the illegal stuff, and so that stuff when I was a kid meant a lot, because at that time, you know, I thought that was kind of a risk in her, and that was the first time that I saw the impact of what public art can do and how powerful public art can do, because it created, you know, it put a lot of eyes into her business. It created a lot of, you know, just, you know, dialogue with folks, you know, wanting to see what this was all about. And so when you have some sort of a mural on a wall, it makes people stop and check it out. And so I would see that and kind of almost like, you know, just understood what that meant when people would stop by and felt a certain connection to the place. So how did I get there was, well, like I said, my aunt reached out to us, but I think how I got to, after that, what I started doing was kind of basically surrounding myself with art and being around as much art as I could, and started learning about, you know, this is before me knowing that I wanted to become an artist, a professional artist. And so I took it upon myself to spend time in libraries and learn more as much as I could about art. And that has since helped me become the artist that I am, just by when I take on a project, I try to do as much research and learn about what I'm about to, you know, engage myself in, and so that's kind of become a thing of mine, where it's just surrounding myself with as much art as I could, and that was at a young age, and I feel like I'm still doing the same thing, you know. So that's me right there. A little graffiti kid turned public art.
Yeah, so Teresa, will you introduce yourself and tell us about your first public art project and how you got there?
Sure, thank you. Thanks all of you for being here. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm really pleased to have been invited to this gorgeous, gorgeous space and to learn a lot in this process about what you all are doing in Boise. It's an amazing, it seems like you guys are doing great things for artists, great things with art, and there's a lot of art lovers. I was stuck in traffic down here today, and just in the few blocks that I was like looping, I saw several art pieces that I thought were incredible and wanted to like pull over, but I'm like, oh my God, I've been sitting here for 20 minutes, so I'm probably not going to do that right now. Anyway, so thank you. I'm happy to be here. My name's Teresa White, and I am a sculptor. I live in Portland, Oregon. I've been doing art for, let's see, I'm 55, and I've been doing art since I was about 40, maybe a little older, so not really that long. And I sculpt in ceramic clay, so a water-based clay, and also in a plastiline clay. I do ceramic pieces, mostly masks. I'm Yupik, Alaska Native on my mom's side, and white European, very working class on my dad's side, kind of a good cultural mix in my family. Everything goes together really well. But my ceramic pieces, and when I started out doing art, I started out with just ceramic. I didn't really have a lot of, I was raised in Portland, I didn't have a lot of, I guess, visual representations of Yupik masks around me, but I love masks. I've always loved masks. So when I started playing with clay, I just started playing with masks, and turns out my pieces are not, Yupik dance masks are meant to be like done. They're wooden, they're carved, they're meant to like put on and wear during a mat, during a dance. My pieces are meant to hang on a wall, but they're inspired by my culture, my Yupik culture, and you can see a lot of motifs and things that are similar to Yupik dance masks. So, and then on the other side are the plastiline, and so I sculpt plastiline in the round for bronze casting. So that's that. That's a little bit about what I do. And my first public art piece was in Portland, Oregon, in a municipal building, the Mead Building, which I think at the time was doing, they did juvenile justice there, downtown Portland. And I had applied for, I asked my friend who's in Nupiaq and was a kayak builder, I asked him if he wanted to do something together. It was last minute, I saw the call, we really didn't have time to apply, but we did apply, we got together, came up with an idea, and I think that it was a good idea, and our application was not well executed. So, but I sent it in anyway. It was the first time that I had applied to a public art call. And apparently they liked it, but they couldn't, well, I know people now who work for the Regional Arts and Culture Council, but they couldn't believe what we submitted as our example and how we like portrayed what we were in. I mean, like, it wasn't crayons, but it was clothes. Like, this is what we're thinking, it's gonna be really cool, And I can write, so the writing and all of the, we had all the, everything was checked off and it was done well, that part, but they just didn't see what we were seeing. So what they did afterward, they said, no, sorry, but we love this idea and we have this other opportunity. Would you be interested in doing like a temporary window in a municipal building downtown, which we did. It was meant to be 6 months. I think it was there maybe closer to a year, but it was a full-size window. We didn't know, it was my first experience with this, so we were literally like putting the thing together. He didn't live in Portland. We were putting it together in the window, fabricating it essentially in the window, which was a really wild experience, and great things came from the experience. And we had a lot of people show up to celebrate it when we had the opening. I met a lot of great, cool people and a lot of people in the arts that night, a lot of community people. There were people coming in off the streets. And yeah, that's it. That's what I have to share around that.
All right, so Mungo, will you introduce yourself and tell us about your first public art project and how you got there?
Yeah, of course. So, hi, I'm Mungo, and I'm an artist. And I do different arts. I do a bit of poetry, and I do music mostly. And I do a lot of art as well. I graduated with an art design degree, so that used to be my main thing. Then music did its thing, so now music's my main thing, but I always do art, because art is home as well. It's like the thing. And so that's what I do, write songs and sing them, and also make art and see it, or share it, that's a good way to put that. And I got into public art. I have two stories, because there's a Boise story, and then there's a pre-Boise story. So as I was finishing high school in Armenia, I did that for 2 years. And we did, each week of one of the years, we did a project week where we'd go and do something for the community with like your peers that you were in the same class with. And so we chose an orphanage in a city 2 hours away from us, and we decided to paint like a mural on the inside of like stuff that would bring the kids joy. And so we did that project week, and it was 7 of us, and we painted like all sorts of things on the wall for the kids. And it was really fulfilling because it was like, you know, art for the kids that are in an orphanage and they're like gonna see it every day, and it was like in their playroom almost, like their general room sort of. So it was really cool to be able to do that. And then moved over to Boise, did college, graduated, lived here for a bit. And then I am in a collective called Sana, and we were looking for a grant from the city. And so I go on the arts and history page, and I'm looking through it, and I see a call to artists. And I'm thinking to myself, I haven't done art in a while because I've been doing music for a bit, but you know, art's so central to who I am. And I saw the call, and it looked like something I really wanted to be a part of, because I'm an international kid in Boise. And so it was like beautiful to be able to, because they're doing redevelopment here. If you know and you live here, you've seen the streets and you had to take the next street because the other one was in construction. But anyway, they're doing that, and so there was 4 topics that they were trying to capture, and it's immigration, transportation, water, something, and something else. And when I saw those, I thought to myself, immigration is the perfect one for me because it's so personal to me. You know, I immigrated here 5 years ago. And I'm connected to a lot of Boise people, a lot of people that moved here from other places, and to be able to tell their story and mine of like, oh, we're part of this community now, but we weren't always, and we feel a part of this community and we feel welcome and blah, blah, blah. And that was part of the city's, you know, call to thing as well. And I got there because I was looking for a grant, and I managed to find the call to action and send in my application. And I was lucky, and it got, you know, we worked on it, and it happened, and it's my first and only Boise City Arts and History project, and it's down in Grove Street.
So I'm going to start the next question with you, since this is still a pretty fresh experience, because that was a very recent project. So what tips would you give, or strategies to other emerging artists that are thinking they might want to do public art? What would you tell them?
I would say first and foremost, like this has come up a lot this week for me. The first way it came up was somebody made a video, and in it they say, courage is the language of the fulfilled, or something like that. I'm butchering it. But they're basically saying when you step out of your shell and you do something out of the ordinary, then you can be rewarded with a fulfillment that is not regular to your regular pattern, you know? And so that's the first thing I think, just do it, you know, just go for it, and it will yield results. Because if you don't, it won't, you know, like if there's, and just believing that you can, I think is part of it as well, because part of, like half the people that do the things that they do that you wish you would be doing are doing it because they believe they can do it and you don't, you know? And so just going for it and doing it regardless of, you know, what you think how qualified you think you are, you know, what you're bringing, like what you bring is unique to every situation. And so I think that's the biggest one, like just do it. I was gonna say 4 ways in which it came up this week, but I don't remember the rest. But it's really, it came up a few more times in conversation with other people of like, one of them was my philosophy teacher who I had lunch with this Wednesday. And one of the things he taught us was from a philosopher called Fromm, and he was talking about coming up with identity and true identity and authenticity, and just, you know, going for things that are out of the ordinary because it's building who you are, you know? And so, yeah, staying true to that and just going for things regardless of what you believe whether you're qualified or not, and all of the things that go with like being like, oh, I'm putting myself out there. You know, put yourself out there. Because nothing ever grows in the comfort zone, I believe. That's my main perspective. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, putting yourself out there and just going for it.
That's amazing advice, really important. So Teresa, what would you say?
Ooh, can I add something?
Yes.
Another thing is, you mentioned this, like just studying and like seeing what is going on and being in touch with like the reality around you that exists, and also, I don't know, what has existed and what exists and what will, you know, like being in touch with your surroundings creates a you that feels very, I don't know, very authentic, very like connected to what is happening around you. And I think being in touch with that and like learning from people that have done some stuff that's similar and building on that like knowledge, if it's technique, if it's like exploration and whatever, like there's so much that you can learn from people that have done it before, that you can apply to your own journey.
Yeah.
What was the piece that did you do a piece on Grove? Or
Yes.
Explain that part, I don't know what.
Sorry, yes, Grove Street, between 5th and 6th and 3rd and 4th. It's medallions that are 12 inches and are in the concrete, on the sidewalk. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So Teresa, what would you say is strategies or tips for emerging artists?
I was thinking about this a couple weeks ago because I did a workshop for Kids Rise. It's a Portland collective where they had neighborhood kids coming in and doing art. There were a bunch of art stations. It was a great experience for a lot of little ones. But I was there with another artist who is a muralist, and they are an emerging artist, and they were talking to me about, oh, we need to have coffee sometime. I'm like, anytime, we can talk. And so they're asking me a lot of questions, and I bumped into this artist before, and they've asked the same questions. I'm like, let's get together and talk. And it made me think of the thing that I told them at that time, and I have said every time, is be open to collaboration. Because that's what works for me. I'm kind of a collaborative person and a community person. Bring your community with you, and then be willing to collaborate. Because for the piece that I just did, that was just installed in a Portland public park 3 months ago now, I collaborated with a steel artist, and there were things that I learned during that collaboration that helped me in the current. I'm in another commission. I have another commission from the city right now for bronze pieces. These are for sculptures. But I learned so much through collaboration, and I don't have an art background, so many things I probably could have learned in school, but I didn't. And I know there are other artists out there who are, making art, selling art, loving art, who don't have art backgrounds as far as education goes. So I'm just gleaning what I can. I'm talking to a lot of people, learning from everyone, like you said, learning from other artists, but be willing to open. And I think, like with this artist that I mentioned, I think maybe they really want to make it. They want to do a thing. They want to have their name out there, and they want to see themselves. And I think that's an incredible thing. And being courageous, but also be willing to learn from others. And you might have to do something a little bit outside of what you had already planned initially. In jumping into the public art field, you might have to look for someone who maybe already is an established artist, so that you can write with them, so that you can be looked at by whatever the art call is by the city. And maybe you just haven't been around as long, or you don't have as many connections, or you're new to the city, whatever. Being open to connecting with other people and letting them help you succeed.
Yeah, that's great. Bobby, what would you say? Yeah.
Well, I have a few things for emerging artists. I think for the one of the first things you want to do is you want to build a pretty strong digital portfolio, like somewhere where you can show off whatever it is you're doing, your skills. And I know sometimes if you're an emerging artist, you might not have the background and the experience, but sometimes you could include mock-ups. There's some really good artists that include pictures of walls, and it just gives folks an idea of how your art can look on this particular place. And so make sure you have a place where you can house your art. Take good photos of your work as well. Make sure that they're clear and just they're just good photos for people to understand what your art looks like. Also, just reach out or be on the lookout for opportunities. That's a big one. You have to always be in the lookout for. And there's a lot of places out there. You could go online that all over the nation. There's places where you can look for opportunities, public art opportunities. A lot of cities have grants. Obviously, Boise has a great program here for public art. And so just look out for those opportunities, but you got to continue to look out for those opportunities. You have to also reach out to places, reach out to businesses. If you don't have, like I started right with my aunt's place, I've since then have helped so many friends and family and people that need public art, and it gives me an opportunity to improve whatever I'm trying to do. It gives me an opportunity to showcase my work. Sometimes those early projects might not pay well, but it's just a kind of a step into the public art realm, and so yeah, just keep reaching out for these opportunities. Hit up local businesses, property owners about mural commissions. Throughout that process, there's going to be a lot that goes into that, and so think about the details. There's a lot of details, and so the more prepared that you are, I think the better outcomes you might have. The details might include the time that might take you. A lot of times you have a day job, and you might not be doing this full time, so you have to be realistic on like what you can take on. And I know I fit that category because I take on 2-3 projects a year, and I feel with my experience now I've been able to take on a little more because I account for my time and these logistic details, the money, the location, the maintenance supplies, having enough supplies to do this project, taking account the space, and so all those little details will come with experience. But I think initially I think it's good to just to think about those as you move forward with those projects. I know in this public art realm, like especially in public art, there's nothing guaranteed that you're going to lock in an opportunity. There's a lot of artists out there that there's a lot of opportunities, but these opportunities, your art may not always fit, and you may think that it won't fit, and that's okay, because if this opportunity isn't for you, it's probably you're probably going to have another opportunity, but you got to be willing to dive in and apply and take those risks. Sometimes to stand out in these RFQs, requests for qualifications, you got to sometimes show that you understand the community and are driven to be part of it. Sometimes the selection committee is looking for like the best person for the community. And sometimes it's not about the artwork. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. That's the thing that's not guaranteed. You don't know what. All you can do is keep creating and keep applying and looking for these opportunities, because you don't know whether you fit those right projects that are out there. And just be genuine about making a connection to that community or communities that you're working with. Research the place. Try to do as much research in the commission that I serve in Meridian. We get artists from outside of the area, and I look at that whether sometimes artists will throw like a net, just to see if they folks out there are interested in their artworks. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. But those emerging artists will make that connection with that community by doing as much research about it, and I think that goes a long way. That way the community can react with the site, and so you just find different ways to to just make that connection. And so for me, as an emerging artist, it might seem a little overwhelming at first, but I think you just got to take that first step and build on that, because from my experience, you do a really good job your first time, and it's more than likely you're going to get another opportunity because somebody liked it and it was a hit, and you feel good about it and they feel good about it, and most of the time you'll notice almost a snowball effect, and so when you get into this public art realm, you kind of have to be ready for that. And so I know we have some artists in the room here that I've seen their work really snowball, because I know that they're putting in the work, and it's amazing to see that. And so for me, it's just kind of just go all in and put 100% in everything that you do, and more than likely that's gonna lead to another opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. Those are all really good. Everybody took everything I was going to say. But I'm going to add just a couple other things from my experience at the university, especially the last few years. And so I think I would say to emerging artists right now, work on your, I don't know, what are sometimes called soft skills, which I don't think is a good name for them, but a lot of the students I'm working with right now, like a lot of their college experience was like highly interrupted by the pandemic. And so what's normally like this time in your life to kind of gel and learn how to socialize and collaborate, they lost that. And it's been a struggle for a lot of those students. The traditional college-age students. At Boise State, I have a lot of different students, different ages, but I think that it's been a struggle, and I've seen it especially just this year because, I'm having the students that are graduating right now, like they were freshmen in 2020, like the worst year to be a college student, and they, kind of lost out on some key things. So I'm an introvert who has to go to an extrovert's job every day. Like, so if I can do it, like other people can do it too. Like, it doesn't come naturally to me to sit in front of people and talk. And, I definitely also come from the training, like a lot of people in the visual arts, of like, being, a studio artist who's just in their studio alone, working on their painting, their sculpture, whatever it is. And that sort of training can actually kind of freeze you up from pursuing anything, let alone public art. Because public art, you're going to have to communicate with a lot of different people, whether it's the community folks who's, are going to be interacting with your project, or the staff, the different fabricators, all those different people. So communication and sort of learning how to communicate, super important. And then I guess I would say too, also coming from my experience in higher education, academia and public art have two totally different sets of language. And even though, like, I'll just tell you a little anecdote, it's from a museum experience, but it pretty much would apply. Right when I finished grad school and I just finished writing like my master's thesis, I approached a museum about showing my work, and the curator came and it all worked out, and here I was having this museum show, and she said, send me your artist statement. And I just basically like took like 4 paragraphs out of my master's thesis that I thought were great and sent them to her. And thank goodness she was totally honest, and she called me up and she was like, this is horrible. And it was one of those moments where I'm just like so grateful that somebody just gives me some flat out good advice, like, and says, this stinks really bad. Because it was basically like what my, one professor who at the time was writing her PhD, and she was like, you have to write like this, you have to say this, you have to, theoretically, you have to be in this place. And that's the space I was in. And I didn't realize like how that would read to, a curator who's trying to figure out how she's going to interpret my work for her audience. So public art is even an additional step, right? Because it's like, it's for an audience of people who may not interact with art at all. And that doesn't mean it has to be dumbed down, but it has to mean that you have to understand like who your audience is and who the community is. If you're working with a good team, with whoever you're working with, they will help you interact with those folks and understand who that audience is. But think about language. Think about like, I know artists, like they don't want to write one artist statement, let alone one for every situation, right?
Yeah.
But it's really important to be able to write about your work, to talk to different people about it. So I think that's important too. Yeah, go for it.
To add to that, I agree 100%. Soft skills go a long way. I think the better you can talk about your work, the easier it's going to be for you to sell it at times. And so just sometimes young emerging artists are looking for a style or some sort of that will come with the experience. I think finding some sort of a voice first goes a longer way. And so just learning about who and what you want to, what is it that you want to share, and the better you can talk about it, and the easier it's going to get for you to kind of build on that voice that you have, and eventually pick up a style perhaps and build on that. I like graffiti, and I come from a farm working background, and so I was able to merge. With that experience, I'm able to merge that and turn something that to me it makes him unique in my perspective, and so if I can talk about it and share that, I think it makes it a little easier for you guys to get these opportunities.
Yeah. I think that too. I mean, it's interesting. I'm sitting right here because I'm looking at one of my former students who is an amazing. She does large-scale sculpture. Like, she brought a sculpture into the gallery for her BFA show that I was like, please don't let anyone drop that on their toe. So we had lots of help trying to move it, and that's amazing. And she's been able to show her work in the public realm. But here's the thing: you don't necessarily have to have the skills of like sculpting or whatever else, because public art, you often are working collaboratively. So often it is just like your story, like whatever your sort of personal background is. Like all of us have talked about projects that are related to our own personal interests, and that's what was more important to the selection committee, to whoever's making the decision. So you really have to have both. I mean, obviously having some technical skills and understanding materials and things is important, but it's not everything. And being able to collaborate means that you won't always have to be able to fabricate in any media that you might want to ultimately work in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One more thing.
Yeah.
You guys made me think of this. Another bit of advice that I got really early on, I paid someone a business, I can't remember her title, but she was like a business advisor, and she was a former gallery owner. And I had just like got online on like business advisors, people who know art. I just did a bunch of research, just pay someone $70, and she told me like a list of things. I saw her twice. And one of the things she told me was, it's the soft skills thing you're talking about, is get to know people who have the money. So, and get to know people by investing your time and your energy. And so I did. I ended up on the one of the councils at the Portland Art Museum. One of the, she was a trustee, someone on the council had been following my work, and I'd never met her before. She became, a patron of my work, someone who like purchases my work, but through like meeting people in the Regional Arts and Culture Council, following up like with these soft skills of connecting around what I'm interested in, or you need volunteers for this or that, you need someone to sit on a review panel, basically just trying to show up and be part of like the larger art community in the town was really helpful for me.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to jump questions here because the answers have been so good that we're not going to get to all the questions. So I want to go to the best ones. So I'm just letting the panelists know that I'm jumping ahead. And I'll start with Bobby. So how do you measure the success or the impact of a public art project? What metrics do you find work for you?
I know for me, there's 3 things I wrote down here. And this comes with experience. I think early on, I wouldn't look at these things, but I think for me, I look at like creative growth. If it's something that's going to challenge me and something I'm going to learn and grow from this project, I take that into account as far as if I'm getting something out of that, and if this project is worth it financially. Is this project going to pay for my supplies? Is it going to pay for my time? Is it enough for me to invest my time into this project based on the financial gain that this project might have? One of the things too I look at is like the location that it's going to be in, like and where you're going to be doing this project. Is it going to lead to other opportunities, or is it going to lead to some connections, or is it going to be in somebody's backyard that nobody's ever going to see, and just that one person or whatever, And so I look at, is this going to be in a place where it's going to be beneficial for my goals as a public artist, and it's going to create some visibility for that. I look at that, and yeah, I feel like that's one way for me to kind of consider, what those measures of success are.
Yeah.
Personally.
This is just a follow-up to that. Because I love that you talked about from your perspective, like what makes it successful. But I'm curious, like, what was your favorite audience response or meaningful audience response that you ever got from a piece?
A lot of my work is, for me, I create work that I feel is going to have a positive reaction, and I think the comment that I've received is that your artwork made me smile on the way to work, and that to me it just made my day, because it says that I did my job, because I'm putting out there something for people to enjoy and admire and be inspired, and if it could make people feel, and this is the power of public art. If I've been to my girls' softball games, and there's these cool little softball statues, and it makes me feel like, oh, they're putting effort into creating this space, and I'm here watching my daughter, and it made me smile. And so if it creates a positive reaction to me, that's my goal.
Yeah, public art is care for the community. Right? I mean, that's maybe the best thing about it. Yeah. So how about the two of you? How do you measure, either for yourself or for the audience, success or impact of a public art project?
Yeah. I think that's one of the things I never really had even thought of going into public art. But then only found out after, like, after I started getting the reactions to the piece, that it was like, oh, there's like, because it was fulfilling enough for me to do the piece, you know, I was like, oh, this is great. But then, in turn, the responses that I got from people in the community that felt connected to the piece and felt like they were represented by the piece was magical. I think that was like a metric I never even knew that because I did it so that they feel represented, but I guess I just never thought of it, you know, I never thought it would have that impact. And so to like sit and like hear people respond to the art and like positively, like you mentioned, is magical. That the art got to do that for them. It was really cool. So I think that's a metric that I use, is the response to the art from people. And this is a question I really struggled because that was the only thing I could think of. And so yeah, just the the people, because it's public art, you know, it's for the people. And so that's I think the biggest thing about it for me.
Yeah. How about you?
All the things that you both said. And I was thinking, I'll just tell a couple quick stories. It's fresh because it's the one that was just installed. But a few stories from this piece. After installation, on installation day, this is a big 15-foot bronze and steel sculpture in a park that it used to feel very rural. It's on the south end of town of Portland, almost in Clackamas County, still in the bigger Multnomah County. Dirt roads, gravel roads, almost farm-like, but right next to industry and on Johnson Creek watershed. There's all this very rich neighborhood vibes, like people have strong feelings. The stakeholders are very engaged in the neighborhood, and they're, big feelings about all sorts of things. So the day that we installed it, I was on my way home, and I was not driving, and I was looking at my emails, and I got an email from a neighbor who said, I watched you install your piece today. I have been extremely unhappy with the whole process of this park restoration. It's going to change the flavor of the neighborhood. One of the construction workers knocked down my apple tree, and it's been there since I was born.
Oh, no.
So she said a lot of things in this email. And then she said, but it was so amazing. Like the next half of the email, I just started crying. She said, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace when I saw the piece up, and when I got online as soon as I saw you making. She was not part of the stakeholder process, obviously, I could tell. So she didn't have a voice before this, so in the process. But she said, as I watched you put this up, I felt overwhelmingly at peace. And I read online a story, and it was something that I had written in a blog post. So I like to just document things. I haven't been keeping up on my logs, but document things with photographs and then some words, conceptual things about the piece, my feelings, and relating it back to the stakeholder ideas and what they wanted. So I felt really happy, and I felt freaked out because of how horrible the first part of the email was. Anyway, that was amazing. She was so happy, and she's like, and maybe this is going to be a good thing, and I feel a sense of hope. Woo, success! Right?
Yeah.
Yes, and then the other thing is when there was a soft opening of the park, and I was walking up into the park, and I was following a family, and this little girl, my eyes are old, from a long way off. I don't even know how far off. She screamed. She was probably 3 or 4 or 5, maybe, I don't know. She screamed, look at the statue! Look! And she was trying to get her parents. She's like, what? And she was excited and jumping around. This is such a great thing. That made me feel incredible too. So yes, I need money. I need to get paid. So that's always that's the first measure of success, honestly, is am I going to get paid enough? And then also, how is this responding to what the neighborhood, what the stakeholders, what the call is all about, and is it creating a sense of community? Can people see themselves in the work, where it is, the people who will be looking at it and engaging with it?
Yeah, yeah.
Along those lines, I just want to add to, aside from making somebody smile, it's also, for me as a person of color, it's representation. And so some of the work I do touches on a very marginalized group, and so when I hear stories about folks that have cried when they see a work because it makes them feel like they're being represented, to me that goes a long way as well, and that's a big measure because it makes me feel like I'm doing something right, and I want to continue representing this my culture, and so that to me says a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, you just very eloquently answered the last question I was going to ask. And I know you were going to jump in too,
Yeah.
but we have about 10 minutes, so we're each going to, give a fairly quick answer to this one. But Bobby just led us to our last question, which is how can public art contribute to community identity and promote inclusivity within communities? And you were just going to jump in, so
Yes.
I'll let you start there.
Okay, so the piece that I did is 2 inlays that go into the sidewalk, and on them is 5 national flowers and the Boise syringa as the Idaho flower, the syringa as the Idaho flower, and then 5 other national flowers: the Chinese one, the Japanese one, the Mexican one, the Congolese one, and Basque, thank you, and the Basque one, and to hear from, to jump back to your point, to hear from, or somebody's point, to hear from community members that represent that marginalized group in all of those settings was really beautiful. And then I had a little conversation with Alfonso and Juan, who were installing that day, and for them to be included in that, and to be told that this is part of what this is about, to feel represented and to feel loved and supported by the community. And so I don't remember the question, but that's my answer. That's what I wanted to say. And then I also
You answered it.
Good. I also thought to myself as these guys were talking, which thank you very much, how much a positive response is great, but also sometimes just a response is great. It doesn't always have to be positive, because public art, I think for me, art is supposed to be starting conversations and about having conversations and about feeling things, And so it doesn't always have to be positive, in my opinion, because sometimes what you need to have people think about might not be the most pleasant thing, And I think just getting that conversation is so important a lot of the times with public art. And so it's cool to be able to do that and get conversations started and get progress collectively as humanity through pieces of art that start conversations.
Mm-hmm. Teresa, do you want to add anything about community identity or representation or inclusivity within communities?
Yeah, so this is a little bit more for arts organizations. I recently, the commission that I'm currently working on is through the City of Portland and NAA Family Center, which is a Native American Youth and Family Center. And they're working on an indigenous corridor in Portland, 42nd Avenue and Cully neighborhood. It's a mixed residential and business district. When I did the interview, there was an 8-person panel after the first 3 steps, and then there was this interview. And on the interview panel were people from the Regional Arts and Culture Council, the city, the NAA Family Center, not just leaders, but other people from NAA Family Center who are part of that organization. And then there were people from Mamutokoti, the residential artists. It's actually an artist community that this piece is going to be in front of on the sidewalk. And so the arts organization, well, whoever, I think it was NAA that put this together, invited 2 people, a really young person and a person, and I don't know why I'm even saying that. I guess I'm just so shocked all the time how old I am. Anyway, this very young, 2 people from the community who sat on the interview panel, and they had power to say, they had power to vote, they were involved. So I was really applauding the people who put that interview panel together, because people from the community who are going to be looking at it every single day got to participate in that process. So that was cool. I don't really think
that's good.
I know we're at the end ahead of our time, but I just was happy about that.
Yeah, yeah. I'll just wrap with this. How many of you have been to a panel in Boise where all the panelists were people of color? Is this the first time? Maybe one of the first. Yeah, and I'm being a little funny, but it's also super serious. That's really important to me. And I'm going to say that's probably really important to everyone else on the panel. Representation in Boise, Idaho, for people of color is really important. And I think just coming off what Bobby said, even if it's not my cultural experience as a mixed race, African American and Irish American person, I still get teary when I go to Caldwell and I see Miguel Alameda's mural, because I know that that's so important to so many people in that community, and that's really important. And also public art, I think just historically, you tend to think of artists that are like white guys, you know? And that's, and I like white guys too, and I love their art. But I think there's, historically, and what we're learning now when we think about community identity and art, there's a lot of issues with public art too, based on who is in power, who made this piece, who made the decision that this work should be here. And a lot of it is actually, there's actually public art that's in the service of hatred. So that, on the deepest level, is why representation is important. Not just to show every artist, but it really matters who's making a decision and why they're putting something meaningful in a particular place, and that's important too. So, yeah, I was supposed to end with a wrap up, but maybe I'll just leave it there, because I think that's a good place to wrap up. And then you're gonna come say something.
Take this time now to collect your note cards, and then we'll have a little Q&A session.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, just the diversity part is very important. So, because everyone has something to say, and public art is a great way to bring up anything really, because there's issues that we all face every day, and everyone could participate and have their unique stories shared. And so diversity is important. So if you're looking to get into public art, no matter what background you come from, it's the more diversity that we have out there, I think it goes a long way.
Yeah. So you're gonna collect the questions? Okay, so questions, all right. So, how do the challenges of the public realm influence, inspire, or aggravate your art practice? And I'll just throw it out there for whoever wants to answer that one.
Can you say the first part again? Or the what?
The challenges of the public realm. And who wrote this? What challenges? Can you give me a specific challenge?
The weather.
The weather?
Ooh. I got a few weather stories. Yeah. Well, my experience with weather is, I think I've shared this story to some of you with one of my first big projects here in Boise is on Main Street, Groovin, the little character that's up there on the Alaska building with the guitar. The weather was not my friend. I had a weekend. I had 3 days to get it done, and one of the days was setting up the scaffolding. And on the last day, on that Sunday, the day before I was supposed to get it done on Sunday, this huge storm came, and I was up there. It was a 3-tier scaffold, so it was a 15-foot scaffold. I was already above a building. You know, safety, consider safety, harnesses, you know, helmets, safety helmets. But that day, I didn't sleep because I thought the weather was going to blow that scaffold. It was so bad that I thought the weather was it was going to blow that scaffolding. The scaffold is heavy and tough, so at the end of the day, it was not going anywhere. But I remember being up there and just kind of shaking and swerving, and it was just one of the scariest moments, at least from my experience, on a 3-story building, painting, and lightning might hit me. So but the thing is, I had this deadline that I was trying to meet, and I knew if I didn't put in the work, I wouldn't meet it, and I was able to get it done on time. But to this day, that was probably one of the scarier times. What I learned is it's not worth it. Come back down and wait for the next day.
Do it tomorrow.
Yeah, do it tomorrow.
Yeah. So another question, can you describe a work of public art that you've seen that you loved and why you loved it, Boise or otherwise?
Yeah.
I can jump in too. I've got one in mind. Okay. I think that last topic that we talked about, since we didn't have a whole lot of time to talk about it, there's been some really, really powerful public art recently that I think deals with some of the issues that I was talking about the power of monuments and public art. And recently I saw a piece, it's actually in Montgomery, Alabama. It's by Michelle Browder. It's called The Mothers of Gynecology. Now talk about a subject that you can't even imagine being in public art. This is a sculpture that references Dr. J. Marion Sims, who was a doctor who did experiments, gynecological experiments on enslaved women in Montgomery, Alabama. And if you heard a few years ago, I think maybe it was in sometime between 2018 and 2020, there was actually a sculpture of him in New York City where he's buried. And there was so much community support to remove it that it actually was removed. He actually did his so-called medical practice in Alabama, and they actually have protections for sculptures there. So there's actually a sculpture of Sims in Alabama as well, and it's protected by the state, so it will not be removed. So, and because it couldn't be removed, another organization hired an artist, a Black woman artist, to make a sculpture. And it's a sculpture that represents 3 women that were harmed by this doctor. And I think that's a really interesting, first off, it's such a hard subject, but public art can do hard things. And obviously the fact that someone gave the money and the space to let an artist create something so controversial, so triggering, I'm sure, for a lot of people, regardless of what side they're on. And it's a really, really powerful piece. So I thought I would talk about that.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'll say something to that. We live in a time where public art and street art has become like a global movement. Like, it's everywhere. You can go any city and experience some really cool public art. I personally consider myself a mural hunter. When I go to cities, I look up ahead of time what artists are going to be in that city, and I try to make a point to go and look for these these spots. And yeah, the cool thing about studying and experiencing these murals as you go and learn, you learn so much about them. You learn so much about the city. You learn so much about history, and there's so much that goes behind into these works, whether it be the technique that goes into it or the story that goes into it. I really enjoy doing that. If I didn't do, if I wasn't an artist, I would still be following these artists and be probably doing that for a living, because I really enjoy looking at these public spaces. I think the big ones are always going to be more impactful, and so if you go anywhere and you see something large, it's obviously going to attract more attention. And so to me, I admire the large scale works that are out there, because it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work that goes into those works. So I admire that, and I encourage you guys as you visit cities to look up artists that you guys want to see, and because it's a whole experience. It's one thing looking at it on Instagram, and another thing when you go up there and you look at every stroke. I've been admiring Jay's work lately, because the work that him and his team has been doing. The Jay right there. Just the details and the work that goes into it. It's very cool, and I really appreciate those works, and I encourage everyone to do the same when you go out into the world of public art.
Yeah, I like to go visit Jay while he's working on it. So another question from the audience is, what do you think a city's primary role is in regard to public art?
Support and encourage. Support in terms of just as long having those opportunities available. First of all, it goes a long way. As a commissioner in Meridian, we try our best to offer that to our city artists, to our residents, and sometimes there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes, and sometimes cities aren't. It just takes time sometimes to put together projects and all the things that go into it. But a healthy art city is just one that just has those opportunities and supports the arts and are engaged in the community.
Yeah. Another question. Many of you have dealt with being the first in your family to be a recognized artist. What is it like to be the first? Anyone a first artist in the family?
Just because of how much it was like, I don't know, it was a little bit of a struggle. So initially I was going to be an architect, because you have to be one of these things that there's a list of things. Anyway, so then I go to the school and try and do architecture, and then I drop out because it's I love architecture and I love creating and all that stuff, but it just didn't, the school specifically and the time, there's so many factors. Anyway, so I drop out, but there's also still boxes that you can do and not do and whatnot. And so I decide, okay, I'll do art and design, because that's close enough to architecture that I could do. And also, that was one of the things, I couldn't do an architectural BA or whatever here in the US, because they have there's barely schools that do that at an undergrad level. So I was like, oh, I'll do art, and then I'll do architecture later. Anyway, so then I do art, and I'm like, this is incredible, and I don't know if I really want to do architecture, because one of the reasons I dropped out is we studied 5 architects in the first 3 months, and none of them went to school to become an architect. And I was like, I don't know. They all did, an internship or something intensely enough to become an architect, and they're all recognized enough that we were studying them in the school to do architecture. Anyway, so did art and design, and it's still never there was still so many questions of oh, well, what academic thing, down this path, how are we gonna make this fit in this academia box that we've always encouraged you to fulfill. And so, yes, I can speak to that experience just because it's constant pressure to be this other thing, you know. And finally, it was interesting not having been home for 5 years and finally going this January, and what recognition as an artist from an external community means to people that didn't ever believe that art can be the way that you live your life and you create and you know. So I think I could speak to that in the sense of like, keep going until they believe it, because if you believe it, that's enough, you know. And they will eventually. And if they don't, you know, anyway, yeah, just keep going.
Yeah.
I'll say I have the same experience. And
Okay.
Just keep going. And for me, it's more about, I have a day job. I work in public health, and I'm really busy. And then when I'm doing a commission, that's like all I'm doing. And so getting your family to believe that, no, I cannot drive 3 hours to go to Family Bunko this month. You know, I'm sorry, I can't do it, because they're like, what are you doing? You're sculpting? You're like playing with clay? What? But they do think like, yeah, but they start believing it when they start seeing what you're doing, making sure you get it out there in front of your family. But
Yeah.
it's a challenge.
Yeah.
And try and surround yourself with people that get it too, because constantly being gaslit that this vision's not it is a struggle. So like, surround yourself with a balance of people that get it, as well as, you know, those that you love that also don't get it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still explaining to my parents what I do a lot, which is, you know, but it makes me realize every time I have to do it, it's like, if they still haven't gotten it, that's why I have to keep advocating in every, you know, every step of the way, because, yeah, it's like artists, it's a weird little world, and not everyone, you know, gets to understand, like, on all the levels that we understand what art is. So it's always a good reminder. Go ahead.
I was the first in my family too, and I guess for me it's just when you're the first, what it does, it just opens opportunities for those following you. You know, so there's going to be a niece or nephew or somebody that's going to say, well, you know, my uncle was the first, and it just kind of creates this cool thing where, you know, not just family, but, you know, even for your community, you're you know, being the first sometimes is hard, but if you don't keep doing it, those folks, those younger generations of artists might not see what it means to be, you know, an artist or a successful artist. And so it's important to don't get discouraged and keep doing it.
Yeah, another good question here. When does exposure become less relevant in an art career?
Ooh, I kind of have something.
And I mean, I'm assuming that this questioner means like doing something just for exposure. Yeah, okay. Boy, yeah. I don't know. I don't know how I can describe exactly when, but I'm glad I learned that lesson a really long time ago. Because, and it's not because I don't need exposure, but it's because like I can make my own exposure, and usually when somebody's coming to me saying that they can give me exposure, it's not the kind of exposure that I want or need. So it's just not even a question. And yeah, I don't know. I guess that also makes me think of, I don't know, just kind of something I've been thinking about during this whole talk too, and just being here with all these artists, and also looking at the audience and seeing there's actually like a lot of like really savvy art people out in this audience. There's not actually as many like true emerging artists in this audience as there are people who know a lot about art. And so let me just take the opportunity to say this. Every once in a while, man, I just wanted to say this so bad. I'm so glad I'm getting the chance. Just call up the artist, send them an email, and invite them to do something, or just give them something. Give them a job, commission them. Don't make them write application after application after application. Just, if you like the artist, then give them something, support them. They need it really bad. like really bad. Even artists who, you know, seem like they're doing really well, like, you know, we all have work, we all have been successful, but that doesn't mean we're constantly like, what is the next project going to be? And we have to apply to a bunch of stuff and do a bunch of things. And that's how the art world functions, but it's really hard on artists. So if you ever have the opportunity to just hire someone without putting them through that, do it. Right?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, exposure does not pay the bills, as we know. I look at exposure as it's obviously good because it's going to put yourself out there. But if you don't feel comfortable doing a project, I wouldn't put myself out there and risk maybe your creative reputation. You know, I think there's this fine line between, you know, exposure and learning the lesson. You know, because you know maybe you don't get paid what you're supposed to, what you're worth at that moment. But as long as you learn something from that experience and you take that into more of a positive, don't put yourself in that situation all the time. But if you find yourself in that situation, you know, just try to look at more of like the lessons that you learn in that project. Because yeah, exposure is kind of such a common thing in our artist world where people will take advantage of us all the time, and it sucks. And so I've learned the hard way, but I've also learned so much because of it. And so it's the lessons that you learn that to me kind of go a long way.
Yeah. Anything else you want to jump in on that? Okay. I'm going to ask one more question because I'm a teacher and I know when people are ready to be done. And even though our time, we still have a little bit more time, are you okay with that? I think, yeah. And of course, like we can all just mingle and talk about stuff. I think this is a good one. How can we support kids in our area who don't have the opportunity to go to events or walk around downtown or gather at popular meeting places? How can we bring meaningful public art to them?
I sort of had an answer, but the last part, maybe this isn't exactly answering the question. But Lake Oswego, I have a sculpture in Lake Oswego downtown, and it's a bronze sculpture. And I bump into people who say, my kid loves your piece. How does your kid know about my piece? Well, it is across the street from like one of our handmade ice cream stores, but in Portland. But like that's great. But they do. They have in their curriculum in the city of Lake Oswego, they look at public art, little kids, and they take kids around. Like the city of Lake Oswego has a really good program where it's all mapped out. And I know you all, I saw some of your brochures back here. You do too. But just making sure schools. And community organizations, like community centers in Portland too, have events where people can go around, bring their kids around. And community-based organizations also do that. I know in Portland, a couple that part of my community, the indigenous community.
Yeah.
Schools is a big one for sure. 2 weeks ago, I don't know what week it is, but 2 weeks ago, I visited a school in Garden City and got to talk about this piece of art and just like getting the kids, you know, like it's a perfect place to capture the kids' attention if, you know, you're bringing art right to them and the teachers speak to them about the art and all of that. So I think schools, if you know your school that's associated with the kids that you're surrounded by is not doing it, maybe like pitch it to people to like bring it into their curriculum and have a day of artist visits, or not even, you know, if they can't do that, then just like show the art and speak about, you know, the artists that have done them and all of that stuff. I think it makes a huge difference for the kids because you can tell, like, you know, all of these different things that they could see themselves in art and like feel, you know, it was just like very, you could tell that it's making an impact for the kids that they're getting to see art and hear about the art from the artist.
Yeah.
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 I just remember there's in Beaverton, Oregon, which is near Portland, they have I got a call from a teacher a few years ago who wanted me to put together a presentation of my work, and she wanted really specific things, you know, to a grade level and all this. So, but I did a presentation, and it's on. I forgot that it's part of their art curriculum now, and so that's another way young people are seeing it. So it's on the webpage. Kids can just get online and look at art, and I'm not the only artist on there. They have a whole bunch of artists for the city who are recognized, and you can see a ton of their work because the presentations are slides. So you don't just get to see one piece; you really get to hear a tiny story of the artist, and then look at a bunch of slides.
Yeah, yeah. Well, go ahead.
If anyone ever gets the opportunity to paint at an elementary school, which I did a couple years ago at Whitney, it's such an amazing experience when these kids are watching you paint and learning about the process. To me, to this day, that was one of my most memorable experiences as a public artist. Recently, a week ago, I visited my friend's sector 17 at Foothills Elementary, and I would hear these kids like oohs and ahs and like, oh my gosh, like, their jaws dropping as they see the work being created. And so it's special when you're doing community work especially for young kids. And so if you get that opportunity, it's a very special thing. So.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you to everyone in the audience, to all the artists. And I know that Hannah wants to come and just wrap up. Yeah. And thank you for inviting all of us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm genuinely so grateful for all of your insight, and it was such a beautiful conversation, and I feel like I got a lot out of it. I hope our audience got a lot out of it. Thank you to our panel members. Thank you, our audience, for coming. Thank you, Delia, for the amazing, beautiful space you've curated here. I want to thank Olive and Vine for coming and supplying the libations. They were much appreciated. And then for the organizations that are here that support our creative community, I'm so grateful for your presence, and it's these organizations and these artists that make Boise such a beautiful and strong creative community, and I just feel very fortunate to be a part of this. So thank you all for coming, and take some food.